Unit 8, Gateway. Monumental is a word that comes very close to expressing the basic characteristic of Egyptian art. Never before and never since has the quality of monumentality been achieved as fully as it was in Egypt. The reason for this is not the external size and massiveness of their works, although the Egyptians admittedly achieved some amazing things in this respect. Many modern structures exceed those of Egypt in terms of purely physical size, but massiveness has nothing to do with monumentality. An Egyptian sculpture no bigger than a person's hand is more monumental than that gigantic pile of stones that constitutes the War Memorial in Leipzig, for instance. Monumentality is not a matter of external weight, but of inner weight. This inner weight is the quality which Egyptian art possesses to such a degree that everything in it seems to be made of primeval stone, like a mountain range, even if it is only a few inches across or carved in wood. Exercise 1. Children learn a great many useful life lessons from friendship problems. It is, almost always, a mistake to step in too soon to protect them from this, sometimes literally hands-on learning. It is also a mistake to assume that every child, either boy or girl, is going to have the same pattern of friends as you do. Children are different from each other and different from their parents. Some prefer to have or simply end up with a larger group of friends with no one person standing out as a special friend. Some will be content with serial best friends, just one or two of them at a time, and are not, therefore, invited to all the parties but are content. And some children are quite happy with few or no particular friends. These children will often have passions and interests that they can follow intently at home and may find the general play of the playground dull. Exercise 2. Have you ever been to an event and had someone else's reaction make you feel totally out of place? At the beginning of the evening, you felt spectacular, but one strange look or slight awkward laugh made you feel that you had committed a fashion sin. Who hasn't been in that position? One person, looking us up and down, makes us feel smaller for having what we have and dressing in what we wear. If this person is willing to judge others so harshly, though, imagine how often she judges herself. If you know who you are, such a person will not be able to tear you down by simply projecting her insecurity onto you. You will never feel the need to win the affection of such a person if you are content with what you have under your clothes and under your skin. Exercise 3. Today, biennales are the center stage for contemporary art in the art world. Not only do they showcase and discuss the nature of our contemporary life, but they also differ from the modern world fairs because they explicitly project multiple fractured histories and identities. The desire to overturn previous political and theoretical structures is central to the discussions around contemporary biennales. For instance, when asked, "What makes a biennial?" world-renowned curator Rosa Martinez answered that the idea biennial is a profoundly political and spiritual event. It contemplates the present with the desire to transform it, and is indicative of a larger social, political, and economic flow within contemporary society. We might even say that biennales are perceived as trendsetters or predictors of intercultural flows that focus on the political nature of art in a global setting. Exercise 4. Peer groups of young males in non-human primate societies, called bachelor groups, serve a variety of functions. In squirrel monkeys, males approaching breeding age become social outcasts. Their mothers and sisters want nothing to do with them. Young males may travel together separately from or on the edge of a large troop of monkeys, either of which affords them more protection than traveling alone. In species such as langurs and rhesus monkeys, groups of young males commonly depart together in search of a new living community. Peer groups function differently for male chimpanzees who don't emigrate. They may patrol their home range together to deter males from other groups from getting into their community. They also hunt cooperatively and share the food, and groom one another in deference to rank or coalition partnership. Exercise 5. Even after people learned the scientific method, many still pursued and believed in really weird things, and many old ideas died hard deaths. It's hard to believe, but even simple things such as washing your hands to prevent infection were not fully accepted by the medical community until relatively recently on the human timeline. Even after it was discovered and documented that washing hands drastically reduced deadly fevers, the idea took a while to catch on. It was just too revolutionary, too weird. The idea of germs and microscopic organisms challenged a variety of other ideas, including that the source of disease was probably linked to things that stank, which was sort of true when you thought about it. In a world that had already invented the telephone and the light bulb, hand washing to prevent sickness met enough resistance that doctors argued about it for decades. Exercise 6. The 1980s, a time of true global interdependence, was a lost decade for many economically disadvantaged countries. Despite consistent reductions in mortality rates and other disease burdens, a marked deterioration in living conditions occurred in many countries. In several regions, most notably Latin America and Sub-Saharan Africa, advances in healthcare and education eroded. Unemployment rates rose in many parts of the world, as did the global poverty rate. By 1989, 1 out of 5 people was living in absolute poverty, which the World Bank defines as suffering from malnutrition to the point of being unable to work. By the end of the 1980s, low-income countries had accumulated a debt of $1.3 trillion. Crippled by massive debt burdens, many countries saw their growth rates slow and living standards decrease. Exercise 7. Companies that inspire, companies that command trust and loyalty over the long term, are the ones that make us feel we're accomplishing something bigger than just saving $1. That feeling of alliance with something bigger is the reason we keep wearing the jersey of our hometown sports team, even though they have not made it to the playoffs for 10 years. It's why some of us will always buy products from a certain brand over other brands, even if the brand isn't always the most affordable choice. Whether we like to admit it or not, we are not entirely rational beings. If we were, no one would ever fall in love, and no one would ever start a business. Faced with an overwhelming chance of failure, no rational person would ever take either of those risks. But we do, every day. Because how we feel about them or someone is more powerful than what we think about it or them. Exercise 8. Ironically, some of the most powerful techniques for boosting your memory are also the oldest. Under the umbrella term mnemonics, it has a silent M. These involve tapping into the fact that our brains have evolved to deal very well with both visual images and spatial locations. By turning facts into mental images and imagining them along a route of locations, you can harness these natural memory powers to remember almost anything you like. The more improbable and emotionally charged the images, the better, as our brains evolve to pay special attention to those features. Another part of your imagination that can boost your memory is your musical sense. Rhythm and rhyme are potent memory boosters. This explains why you might find it hard to remember the periodic table of elements, yet your memory banks are overflowing with old ad jingles.